Hello everyone, welcome to this playthrough for Master Division in the Club Oceania Tournament. The video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, so let's go. For hole number one, you're going to see two different approaches. First approach is going to be Brian is going to try to go over the island there, and that is of course very risky, but we need to take that risk when it comes to Master. You can see there, take away one ring, like have the white ring on that specific position there, and take away like one ring from the island so you have some distance while going there. Max overpower, you need to use 3-4 bars side spin to right, you can use more, and 3 to 5 bars of top spin. Have in mind that you kind of like, sometimes you will go too long, sometimes you will go too short depending on the bounce that you're going to have on that island, but in the end just hitting that island is going to be tough. One ball of curl against the wind if we do have 15, then reduce that a little bit if you do have less. So now we're going to go for hook shot. We're going to go max side spin, and we're going to go 4.5 bar of a back spin. We're going to use that tree, you will see it soon. This tree there we're going to use as a reference. So we're going to have 14.5 in the middle of that tree. Max iPad curl. Have in mind, do not use landscape here because it's going to give you too much curl. And as you can see here, we're getting it to bounce nicely there, and we're getting it over. As you can see here, we're coming in a little bit too hot, but in the end we are landing in a good position there. The problem that we do have here is that we're using too much side spin to the left. That side spin pushes us too much to the left there, so we need to reduce that and go in like 1 to 3 bars of side spin instead of max side spin that we do have on a berserker. So the thing to have in mind with the hook shot there is that you really need to pay attention for the wind. If you do have more side wind, then you kind of need to reduce the backspin the side spin basically all together, as you're going to come in a different angle. If you're having more top spin, if you do have more tailwind, then you will need to use more side spin, also maybe a little bit more backspin. Like also straight side wind, then you need to reduce the backspin as well. So you need to really pay attention for that, because it's very easy, even though that you're going for that hook shot, to hit the rough on the left side and roll down and go out of bounds. Then it's going to be scary for you. So hole number 2 here, and hole number 2 you're going to see a version that might be the best one. We're going to be a bit unlucky with a drive, but this is kind of showing in the way that I'm thinking of playing this hole, depending on the wind that I'm actually going to have in my face. So we're going to have headwind. Our opponent's making a shot that is not going to be able to reach to get it to green in 2, even though having a good distance there. So our turn, and we're going to use a jewel ball. I like to go with 1 bar of side spin to the left for this approach, and max top spin here. We do want to hit that narrow, like very skinny fairway, just in between the rough parts there. We're going to aim in the middle, and we're going to adjust 1.5 ring over the normal adjustment. So we're going to go with 5, and then we're going to go with 8.5. And 8.5 is going to be like, it's 7 rings in normal, and then we're going 8.5 to 1.5 ring plus. And that is going to be good for us, as we're going to go and bounce over. But the problem that we do have with the curl to the left, combined with the hitting the ball great, that is going to put us in the rough. So take away that curl, just go with a general shot, and do really hit that ball perfect. Then you maybe wonder why aren't you going on the right side there. The reason I'm not going on the right side is because I do want to have at least lower than 9 in wind to be able to clear that with an Apocalypse 7 or a Thor's Hammer 7. If I'm not having any of those type of clubs, then I'm going to go on the left side. I need to, and then we need to put ourselves there, so it's going to be a tough shot. So as you can see with the Nirvana, we have no way in that burning part of place like hell to be able to reach for the green in 2. So we're going to play ourselves up, and then we'll have to play with a thorn, which eventually will be seen as a birdie, as you will be able to see on my next approach. But the reason I'm saying that now is not like it's a bad approach that we're doing. It's just a little bit unlucky that we actually hit the ball great on the wrong side. We need to hit our ball perfect when we're going with our drive. That is so important. So hole number 2 is going to be played this way. And sure, you can go short if you want to, if you're like having a ball with more power, then having to overpower your shot just a tiny little bit by bouncing on the island over to the green. But in the end, we all want to find a way to be able to make an albatross. At least try to. And if you reach over there and you land on the fairway, which again is possible to do, then you do have a shot for the rough bump with that power 4, and that is of course going to be an opportunity for you. But hole number 2, definitely in my opinion the hardest hole that we're going to play here in Master. So really pay attention to the wind, really focus on hitting that ball perfect, so you'll not find yourself in the struggle that I'm doing here for hole number 2. So while I'm doing this approach, I want to say, like, if you do want to skip to a specific hole here in this playthrough, then you can do that by pressing the link that you can see in the video description down below. So go down there, check it out. You want to maybe watch hole 7, you want to maybe watch hole 8, then yeah, check it out and go directly there instead of having to watch the whole video through. So okay, we hit it perfect. We are going to miss it just slightly on the right side with that max backspin, but it doesn't really matter in the end. The important part was the drive there. So hole number 3 now. On hole number 3, we're going to play with the sniper here, and we do want to play with a ball that reduces the distance for us, like the power for us. So Bandera is going to be perfect for us, as it's going to be power 1. And therefore is going to be playable with a sniper. If you're going to play with a sniper with a Kingmaker ball, or like a power 1 ball like a Navigator or like a Quasar, then you will be in between clubs and you're going to have the overpower. We're going to adjust this shot for not 8.5, we're going to adjust this shot for being 10. So we're going to adjust 10 rings for this approach, and then we're going to play our shot. So we're going to adjust 1.5 to 2 rings more than normal. That is because we're playing downhill and we need to adjust for the elevation. So we're coming in a bit too hot, but in the end we're going to make an easy birdie, and that is what counts. And I do believe this is an easier way to play this hole than trying to go with a driver, try to bounce in the bumpy part there up top. Our opponent's going to go with a Cataclysm and a dead ball, and the Cataclysm and the dead ball is going to be tough to play with, as you're going to be in between clubs, like especially while using backspin here, using that specific spot in the fairway. So now while adjusting, kind of like need to go way up here. This is going to be short, even though it's overpowered just a little bit here, but it's going to be a bit short, even though having a dead ball. Sorry, a royal ball. So as you can see here, it gets short, gets stuck there in the fairway, and even though you're going to have straight headwind, that is a chip, of course, that you will have to make, but it's still tougher to do that than a birdie, than a putt for a birdie. Hole number 4, and now it's time to try to go for green. We are going to play with an Apocalypse level 7, which has almost max topspin there. If you do have a Thor's Hammer level 7, I do suggest you actually use that instead of the Apocalypse level 7. Even though it's going to be possible with a Berserker ball here to bounce ourselves towards the green. But in the end, you do have more topspin with the Thor's Hammer level 7. You do have max and Apocalypse only, but has all but 1. You will have to adjust this shot on the island. So even though your ring says you're going to have to go down from the island there, you shouldn't do that, because that is going to mess up your shot as you're going to drop down into the water, and it's going to be way different due to the mechanics of the game. So I rather go with curl against the wind to counter for that. So you're going to go like 1 ball to like half a ball to 1 ball, depending on the strength of the wind that you're going to have. And really pay attention if you're going to have more tailwind, and then you're going to have crosswind. If you're going to have more tailwind than crosswind, like even more than that, it's going to be tough for you to go max overpower, because then you potentially going to cut the rough there on top if you hit it perfect. So you will have to have that in mind. You can see there I'm adjusting just on the edge of the island using one ball of curl. And then we're going to hit it perfect. We didn't use max overpower, but almost. As you can see on the bounce here, we're bouncing just on the tip of the island there, getting it bounce with the top spin, and we roll on towards the green. I'm going to make an easy albatross putt. This is a hole where if you do have the club for the hole, which is a club that do have a good amount of top spin, Thorsheimer 6, Thorsheimer 7, Apocalypse level 6 and level 7, then you potentially going to put yourself on green, or at least very, very close. And that is a good albatross opportunity that we will need to make. So from this distance now, our opponent is having a tough wedge. This wedge is really, really strange. And I suggest that you actually try to straighten your ball guideline up, so you're not going to have to use the slope there. Because even though you're adjusting according to your notes, you're going to sometimes be short, sometimes be long. It's going to be very inconsistent, especially when you bounce when it is like sloping down like that. Now when having, as you can see, you're basically playing this shot uphill, so this ball is not going to be affected that much by the wind as you maybe think. And that is also an explanation on why you're going to go short many of the times. So we are going to pot it in for an albatross and be happy with that. We haven't qualified for real yet. Unfortunately, we did make a really bad score with our second account. Basically nothing worked, but main account focusing on that to do a really good round to get a good tiebreaker. And an albatross as a start is definitely going to be a good one for a tiebreaker if you're going to if it's going to separate like due to the tiebreaker when it comes to the score. So hole number 5 now, it's a par 3, and now we're going to play with a Wind 5 ball, and that could be a Oceania ball, it could be a Bandera ball, depending on what you want to play with. You're going to play your long iron in max distance, as we're playing downhill and also having tailwind as well. So due to the elevation here, we're going to have to over adjust our shot kind of big time. I'm gonna go with 4.2 bars of backspin. And I'm going to, 4.5 bars of backspin is my approach after setting my note. 4.5 bars backspin, and it's going to, there's going to be, what can I say? We're going to have 4.5 bars backspin. We're going to have to adjust 2 rings more than normal. So, if you are adjusting like if you're adjusting from max distance with our long iron, we're going to have to add 2 rings to our adjustment, basically 25% in extra adjustment. So, okay, our turn, and we're going to go with the long iron level 8 here with a Kingmaker. A Kingmaker here due to there is no Wind 5 balls, but again, I want to play with a Wind 5 ball if I want to. So, now we're going to go with 5 bars of backspin, as we're having a bit stronger wind and also having a bit more distance to account for. So, you can see the second bounce want to be just by the fairway, by the fringe, and then to the right side there. We're using 2 bars of side spin as well, and now we're going to adjust this shot 2 rings more than we are supposed to do, and then take our shot. We hit it great though, which means that we're going to lose distance, and as you can see on the bounce here, we're going to go very short, and that is because we're going to that we are hitting the ball great instead of hitting the ball perfect, and because we lose distance of our shot, it's going to be tough for us to get it down to the pin. We really want to stay away from going too long, because then we're going to have a putt that we'll have to overpower. Okay, now we come to hole number 6 now, and hole number 6 is a hole where players is having a hard time to make this drive on the fairway. I don't blame you for having a tough time to do that, because we all want to go as far as possible, and going as far as possible mean that we're going to try to use the wind. We'll have to basically max overpower our drive using as much topspin as possible and side spin as well to go to the left side and try to stay there. Then you maybe wonder like, okay, if I'm not having a royal ball, or if I'm not having a dead ball, and I'm not having an apocalypse level 7 or 6, or maybe I just have a 5 or something like extra mile, yeah sure, then it's going to be a problem for you to go on the left side. You're most likely going to end up in the rough, and I don't want to play from the rough if I don't have to. So we're going to play with a royal ball here. You can play this one with a bunny ball as well, that has power 3 and wind resistance 4. And a dual ball as well, with power 4. Power 4 is important. We are not going to use max topspin. We're going to use 5 bars here in this example. You can also use down to 4 bars, and I suggest that you actually are using 4 to 4.5 bar of topspin on this approach. Max side spin that you do have, and then you're going to have to adjust this as you would be in max distance. And as you can see here, we are just tiny max distance. We have to use around like 5 to 10% overpower using 1 ball of curl. And you can see here by the bounce, we're bouncing over and putting ourselves on this piece of fairway very nicely there. We could have cleared the rough without having to overpower, or just cutting the rough to roll out there. The thing that we want to manage to have is like either having a long iron in max distance, or we're going to have a wood club in in minimum distance. And that is going to be still the same type of adjustment for us, as we're going to go for the rough bump, and we're going to have side wind or like crosswind for that rough bump, and we're going to be very close. So, and again, the drive there, I choose to go with that drive. Sure, if you do put yourself in the rough there, that far behind, then you're going to have a problem to reach for the green. Then you will most likely have to overpower, and you will have to use topspin in the rough to roll out to the green. But in the end, the only thing that we will need to focus on is that we will have to adjust properly, and we'll have to hit the ball perfect. We will have the same problem if we go short in the left rough than as we're going to have if we go short in the right rough. So as you can see here, we do have the long iron in max distance, and as the long iron do have a as the Goliath do have with the power 4 a really good distance, we're going to go with max side spin here. Is because we do not want to use the slope on the right side, using a tiny bit of backspin, and want to kind of use the ball guideline that we actually do have. Use the ball guideline to be 1 square off the pin, and then we're going to adjust for max distance here. We're going to go, as you can see, 7.6 rings. We hit it perfect. We're going to go for a rough bump. In my opinion, this is a much easier way to give yourself an opportunity to make an eagle here, or at least a safe birdie with not having to overpower your drive. Hole number 7. Hole number 7 is going to be tough. Very, very tough. And therefore we kind of need to use a club with a lot of backspin. If you do have a rocket, you can play with the rocket, but it needs to be a club with a good amount of power. So if you want to play with a wind 5 ball like the Oceania ball, or a Bandera ball, then you will have to have in mind that you will not be able to play with the rocket if you're not going to overpower it, or be lucky that you actually just can get it to work. So then I suggest that you use a Thor's hammer or something like that instead. The thing that could happen is, of course, that you bounce down into the rough. Especially the tailwind here will not help. We're going to play with a Thor's hammer level 6. That gives us almost max backspin. I think we have like 94 in backspin. That is definitely going to be enough. 7.8, we're going to adjust our shot for being almost, like for being in max distance. Like almost, I don't know where that word came from. So we're going to adjust for max distance. The trick that I would like to say to you here is to turn the screen around to the other direction instead of adjusting from this particular direction as I'm doing here, because that could potentially mix up the view that we're having as for the water there. We hit it great, and we're still going to land on the fairway and going to bounce nicely towards the pin. This is a birdie hole, have that in mind. We're not going to bag that many albatrosses, that many hole-in-ones on this hole. and we're going to focus on do that on other holes instead. So hole number 8, you're going to see 2 shots here. The reason I'm showing you 2 shots, it's like to show you that a berserker is enough. I was in the belief before I kind of heard from other top players that are playing this one with a berserker and give them a really like good opportunity to land it directly on green. I thought like, okay, I still have a good amount of backspin on the club, and I'm going with an Apocalypse level 6, so I should be able to clear the middle part there and maybe easily land it on green. Then I kind of need to have 16 miles per hour or more to be able to land that on green. And I also stay away from the left side and not kind of like have to worry about if I'm going to hit my shot great on the left side or not. The problem we do have is that we reach too far when having this type of wind. Sure, from the rough is going to be a good opportunity for us to make an eagle. And that is why I'm going to show you 2 approaches, because we're going to play with a berserker ball with the next attempt. So our opponent here is going to go with a navigator here, trying to clear the middle part, and I don't blame for doing that. But in the end, using too much topspin, rolling out, going out of bounds, and not that often that you see people going out of bounds on top there. So the rough iron here, we're going to miss this one, and as this was a shot from where we shouldn't be supposed to qualify, as I'm not qualifying with this account. Hit it great, we're going to miss, but as you can see with that wind, it's definitely going to be an easy shot with the rough. You only need to hit it perfect, but yeah, that is easy, right? So second part here, second shot here, 14.1 in wind, good wind, max back, max side as well, and then we're going to drag out so you see the blue hours there, and you kind of need to drag it down as to lose the overpower, and like to max overpower. And then we're going to of course hit it perfect, that will be ultimate, and we're going to go with a tiny bit of curl, and we want to bounce just like that, and we bounce, get in a hole! Very, very close to dropping it from that distance, but in the end it gives us a very good roll, stay easily on the green. If having a club, like for an example, if you do have a Thor's hammer maybe and a berserker with a type of wind, then sure, but you will have, I would say, like you want to have at least 13.5 in wind with a berserker, otherwise it's going to be have a hard time to clear the rough there, and you want to clear the rough, otherwise you potentially going to on the second bounce going to bounce yourself down. So here you can see a birdie even though we reached the green, but that is because I tried something else for the first shot that didn't work. So that is how we play hole number 8, and hole number 9 is going to be the same. We're going to go max overpower here as well, and we're going to use a berserker here, 12.8 in wind, and you're going to be able to not to be able, you do want to use the top spin of your club. It's like if you do have a Thor's hammer level 7, go with that one instead. Apocalypse level 6 will absolutely work. We will have to stay away from the left side, and we kind of need to use some curl to kind of counter for not going too much to the right. Now we are a bit unlucky there to cut the rough, but in the end we put ourselves in a good way for a wedge towards the pin. The thing that we'll have to have in mind is, again, we need to stay away from the left side, so don't over curl it to the left. And have as a reference, like if you're having like 13.5 in wind with a berserker, then that is definitely going to be good for you. If you're having like more in wind, then you kind of need to reduce the overpower just a tiny little bit, as you otherwise you're going to put yourself, like potentially put yourself in the bunkers. You will have no problem to reach from the bunker there, but at least it's going to be a tough approach shot for the pin. Our opponent here is going to go too much left, as you can see, and not having any top spin to clear that part. Then it's out of bounds, and that is the risk you do take. But for hole number 8 and hole number 9, we need to take that risk, because it's going to be so rewarding, and there has been players that has been making this screen in one, and therefore we're going to have to try it. But even though you have an Apocalypse level 5, try it. Extra Mile level 8, try it. You will have to have a Berserker Ball. And of course, if you have a Berserker like 12 in wind, I would suggest you use the Snow Globe Ball to get around 15 instead. So we're going to miss this wedge here, as we do forget to counter for that we're actually going to get a very hard push while being in tailwind here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the playthrough for Master. A bit sad about hole number 2 as we go in the rough there with our approach. Otherwise, I feel really good about this tournament. And please make a comment in the comment section below if you do have any questions or any thoughts in general about Master. So, Master is the highest division, it's the toughest division because there is the best players do play in Master. In the end, this video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and I want to wish you the best of luck in the Club Oceania Tournament.